Imagine this scenario for a second. You are standing in the middle of a conversation. It could be at a networking event or maybe just a casual get-together with international colleagues.
Right.
On paper, you know the language being spoken perfectly well. I mean, you've studied the vocabulary for years.
You've passed all those difficult grammar tests.
Exactly. You understand every single word the other person is saying to you. But the second it is your turn to reply, your brain simply freezes.
It's like the knowledge is locked behind a thick door and you've suddenly forgotten how to turn the handle.
Yeah, if that feeling of being trapped inside your own head sounds familiar to you, you are exactly where you need to be.
Welcome to today's deep dive. I am your host, Demian.
And I am Carol. We are thrilled to guide you through this topic today.
We really are. So our core mission for this deep dive is to unpack a highly effective framework from the YouTube channel Smart English.
They have created a brilliant guide explaining why we get stuck translating in our heads, and more importantly, how to completely rewire our brains to think directly in English. And before we get into the details, we highly recommend that you follow the Smart English YouTube channel and leave them a comment. They are professionals, they make learning incredibly fun, and their content is the foundation for everything we are discussing today.
Absolutely. Go check them out.
Sure.
But to set the proper stage for this conversation, we really need to clarify what we are not doing today.
Right. We're not going to discuss grammar rules.
No, we will not look at verb conjugations or complex syntax diagrams.
Instead, we are focusing purely on psychological techniques. We will explore the simple daily habits from Smart English that are designed to transform you from a slow translator into a natural, confident speaker.
That distinction is crucial because the freeze-up you experience in a conversation is not a lack of intelligence. It is also not a lack of vocabulary.
No, not at all.
It is simply a mechanical error in how you process language in the moment. You possess all the necessary tools, but the assembly line in your brain gets jammed.
I love that analogy. The guide diagnoses this condition as being a slow translator. So, okay, let's unpack this. We need to look closely at this broken mental chain. Currently, your process probably looks something like this. First, you think of a concept in your native language.
Right, whatever language you grew up speaking.
Exactly. Second, you attempt to translate that native thought into English. Third, you try to fix the English grammar in your head. And finally, you speak.
And the problem is, by the time you reach that fourth step and actually open your mouth, the moment has completely passed.
The conversation has moved forward without you.
Yeah, it is a highly inefficient operating system.
Let us look at a very specific, relatable scenario from the Smart English Guide to understand the real pain this causes. Picture yourself in a normal Monday morning meeting at the office.
We've all been there.
A colleague looks at you and asks a very simple, casual question. They say, "So, what did you do last weekend?"
Immediately, your brain begins to form the answer in your native language. You start building the sentence thinking, well, on Saturday I went to the cinema with some friends.
Right, and this is where the painful mechanical process starts. You begin to translate the sentence word by word.
Your internal monologue sounds like a dictionary search. You think, okay, what is the word for well? And how do I say went? Is it go or went?
You are carrying out massive cognitive labor while the person standing in front of you is just staring, waiting for your response.
And while you are doing all that heavy mental lifting, 5 agonizing seconds pass.
In normal human conversation time, a 5-second pause feels like an absolute eternity.
It really does. You suddenly become very aware of the silence. You can hear the air conditioner humming in the background.
The awkwardness builds, the panic sets in, and instead of sharing your nice story about the cinema, you just panic and say, "Nothing special."
And the conversation instantly dies. You had a great story to tell, but the translation process blocked it completely.
We need to understand the underlying neurology of why this happens, because you truly should not feel bad about this. The system in your head is broken, not your personal ability.
Exactly. In school, you were trained to translate information perfectly to pass written exams. You were taught to use declarative memory, which is slow and analytical.
You were never trained to use procedural memory.
Right, and procedural memory is the fast, automatic system required to think on your feet in real life. Real conversations do not pause while your brain searches a mental dictionary.
So it's a systemic failure of traditional education, not a personal flaw. Hearing that it is an educational system problem is a huge relief.
It is. However, we still have to fix the bad habits the system created.
True. The Smart English Guide begins the repair process with some necessary self-reflection. They ask questions that require you to look closely at your own behavior.
Like, when do you find yourself translating the most? Is it during high-pressure work meetings, or does it happen even when you are relaxed with friends?
What specific types of sentences always force you to translate word by word? And I think this is the most revealing question of all. What scares you more, making a grammar mistake or staying completely silent?
Identifying that underlying fear is the first step toward progress. You cannot fix a habit if you refuse to acknowledge the fear driving it.
Once you recognize that the fear of making a mistake is what keeps you trapped in the translation cycle, you can actively change the process.
Which leads us to a fascinating concept from the guide: using verbal commands to retrain your brain.
We are talking about cognitive reframing. These are literal spoken instructions that you give your mind before or during an interaction.
Now, I have to admit, I am naturally a bit skeptical of this part. Does simply saying a command out loud actually change how the brain functions in the middle of a stressful conversation?
It sounds almost too simple to work.
That skepticism is completely fair. But neurologically, speaking an instruction out loud is very different from just reading a rule on a page.
How so?
Well, when you speak a command, you engage your motor cortex and your auditory feedback loop. You are physically signaling to your brain that a transition is happening.
You are forcing the brain out of its default comfortable state, which is translating from your native language and setting clear rules of engagement.
Exactly. Let us look at the specific phrases the guide recommends. You must speak them out loud, pause, and repeat them 3 times. The first one is very direct. Say it in English.
That sets a hard boundary instantly. Say it in English. Another command they suggest is don't translate, just speak.
This one directly targets the middleman process we discussed earlier. It tells the brain to skip the mental dictionary search entirely.
Building on that directness, we have the command use simple words. Often we freeze because we're searching for complex vocabulary to sound intelligent.
But this command gives you permission to be basic and effective. Another highly effective phrase is, it doesn't need to be perfect.
Verbalizing this specific phrase physically reduces tension. It directly combats the fear of making mistakes that we identified a moment ago.
Then there's a command that shifts the structure of your thoughts. One idea, one sentence.
I love that one. It prevents you from building massive, complicated paragraphs in your native language that are impossible to translate on the fly.
We also have a very visual command. Think in pictures, not in your native language. This instruction trains the brain to bypass vocabulary entirely and connect the English word directly to a visual image.
The guide also emphasizes prioritizing momentum with the command, speak first, fix later.
That tells your brain that keeping the conversation alive is more important than grammatical perfection. You can always correct a verb tense after the conversation is over.
Along the same lines, the command, keep talking, pushes you through the awkward moments so the engine does not stall.
The final 2 commands really focus on patience and mindset. It's okay to be slow. That gives you the grace to take your time without panicking.
And lastly, I'm training my brain. This reminds you that becoming fluent is a gradual workout, not a final exam where you are being judged.
By repeating these verbal commands consistently, you prime your mind to switch operating systems.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Once that mental environment is prepared, the Smart English Guide provides a tactical toolkit.
They offer a list of 10 daily mini strategies. These are practical micro rules that disrupt the translation habit in real time.
Rather than looking at them as a random list, we can group them into broader themes. The first major theme is radical simplification.
Simplification is so necessary. Strategy number 1 is simply use simple words. Do not stand there silently searching for the ultimate perfect expression.
For example, if you want to tell a friend that your week at the office was difficult, your brain might try to translate the exact feeling of being overwhelmed and exhausted.
But if those specific English words do not appear in your mind instantly, you freeze. Dropping the complex word and using what you already know is the solution.
Instead of freezing while searching for overwhelmed, you just say, I feel very tired and stressed.
The reality conveyed to the listener is exactly the same, but the conversation keeps moving forward smoothly. There's no reward for using advanced vocabulary if it takes you 10 seconds of silence to find the word.
That simplification ties directly into the next strategy. One idea equals one sentence. Long, rambling sentences are a trap.
They force you into mental translation because you have to hold too much grammatical architecture in your working memory.
If you start a thought with, well, actually on Saturday I was planning to, but then your brain will inevitably get tangled up.
Keeping sentences short and punchy is much safer. You just say, on Saturday I went to the cinema, it was fun.
two distinct ideas, two simple sentences. It reduces the cognitive load on your brain significantly, and it is actually much clearer for the other person to listen to.
The third strategy in this simplification theme is to accept good enough English.
Yes, the core purpose of language is human connection, not passing a grammar exam. If you refuse to speak until your sentence is flawless, you will spend your life in silence.
Good enough communicates your point, and that is a total victory. Moving to the next theme from the guide, we look at strategies for bypassing the native language entirely.
We mentioned this in the commands, but strategy 4 is to actively think in pictures. When you look at a coffee cup on your desk, you should not think of the word for it in your native language and then translate it.
You should look at the physical object, hold the image in your mind, and attach the English word coffee directly to that image. You map the language to the physical world, cutting out the middleman entirely.
That direct mapping is powerful. But this leads to a very strict rule in the guide. Strategy 5 tells us to completely ban the phrase, how do you say?
The moment you ask that question,
Yeah.
you pull your brain completely out of the English operating system and drop it right back into your native language. It acts as a trapdoor that ruins your momentum.
I understand the theory, but let me play the skeptic again. What happens if I genuinely, truly do not know the English vocabulary word?
Right.
Let's say I forget the word for vacuum. The guide says I cannot ask how to say it, but I also cannot just stand in the room pointing silently at the floor. What is the actual workaround here?
The workaround is to use the simple vocabulary you already possess to describe the function of the object. It is very much like playing a game of taboo.
Oh, I see.
If you do not know the word vacuum, you simply say, I clean the floor with a machine. If you forget the word microwave, you say, the box that makes food hot.
People will understand exactly what you mean from the context. This forces your brain to become agile and rely on its existing toolkit rather than stopping the conversation to search for a missing tool.
That builds immense confidence because you realize you can communicate almost anything with a limited vocabulary.
Which leads to strategy 6. Change your self-questions. Stop asking yourself the deficit-focused question, how do I say this specific native thought in English?
That question demands translation. Instead, you look at your mental toolbox and ask an asset-focused question. What can I say with the English I already have?
It is a complete shift from focusing on what you lack to focusing on what you possess.
Our next theme deals with conversation flow. Strategy 7 is to speak first and fix later.
In a live environment, maintaining the rhythm of the conversation is vastly more important than perfect accuracy. Keep talking.
Later, when you are driving home or making dinner, you can review the conversation in your head and correct the grammar for the next time. But in the actual moment, the flow must be protected.
Strategy 8 gives you the tools to protect that flow. Use fixed phrases. You do not need to build every single sentence from zero, word by word.
You can memorize whole chunks of language and deploy them automatically. Phrases like, at the end of the day, or, to be honest,
Well,
or, right now I am working on.
those fixed phrases serve as conversational anchors. Because you memorize them as a single, unbroken unit, your brain does not translate them.
You simply throw them into the conversation naturally. Doing this buys you a few valuable seconds to think about the rest of your sentence in English without creating an awkward silence.
The final theme from the guide focuses on controlling your daily environment. Strategy 9 is to use English for simple daily tasks.
Change the language settings on your phone to English. Write your daily to-do lists and your grocery shopping lists exclusively in English.
This creates a low-stakes immersion environment. There is no pressure from a conversation partner judging you. You are utilizing the language purely for its utility.
Every time you unlock your phone, your brain is forced to process English without requiring any translation. It normalizes the language in your daily life.
Finally, strategy 10 is to schedule no native language time. Dedicate just 5 to 10 minutes every single day where your native language is strictly forbidden from your mind.
Talk out loud to yourself about your day, using only simple English words.
Think of this as a deliberate period of isolation training for your English brain. You force the neural pathways to fire without the safety net of translation.
It is a very short mental workout, but it is incredibly effective for building that direct connection to the language over time.
Knowing these 10 strategies is great, but how do we actually implement them into a busy life? So what does this all mean for you right now?
The Smart English Guide solves this by providing a highly actionable 15-minute daily brain training routine. It is a 3-step plan designed to fit into any schedule.
The 15-minute routine is structured very logically.
Step 1 is the warm-up, which takes exactly 2 minutes. This is the moment you utilize the verbal commands we discussed earlier. You speak them out loud.
Don't translate, just speak. Use simple words, one idea, one sentence.
By physically vocalizing these commands, you actively signal the transition to your brain. You are officially turning off the native language and entering the English environment.
It is the mental equivalent of stretching your muscles before going for a long run. Once you are warmed up, you move to step 2, the micro monologue.
This takes about 3 to 5 minutes. You choose a random, everyday topic. It could be your morning routine, a specific project you are doing at your job, or what you ate for dinner last night.
And you speak out loud about this topic continuously.
The strict rule during the micromonologue is that absolutely no native language is allowed in your head.
If you hit a mental wall and cannot find a specific word, you cannot retreat into your native language to translate it. You must practice the workaround strategies.
Describe the missing word, use broader categories, or explain its function. The goal is to train your brain's resilience and adaptability while staying completely within the English language.
Finally, step 3 is the real-life moment. This requires just one action per day. You must execute one unplanned, real-world action entirely in English.
This action does not need to be a major public speech. It should be small and manageable. You could send a quick text message to a colleague, record a brief voice note for a friend, or leave a short comment on a YouTube video.
The critical requirement is that it must be unplanned. You cannot draft the message in your native language first and translate it. You must let the thought originate natively in English.
Doing this one small, real action every day proves to your brain that it is capable of direct communication.
We have covered a massive amount of incredibly valuable ground today. Now it is time for your final mission. We want you to take immediate action on this framework.
Your specific homework for today is to select exactly one verbal command from the list we discussed. Choose something like speak first, fix later, or use simple words.
Write that exact command down on a physical piece of paper, or set it as the lock screen image on your mobile phone. Keep it visible all day.
Tonight, before you go to bed, sit in your room and talk out loud for 3 minutes about your day, exclusively in English. No translating allowed.
To synthesize everything we have explored, the core philosophy of the Smart English method is highly empowering. It reminds us that achieving fluency is not a matter of magically memorizing thousands of complex new words.
It is not about grinding through advanced grammar textbooks for hours a day. You most likely already possess the vocabulary necessary to communicate effectively in most situations.
True fluency is simply finding a new, direct way to access the knowledge you already have. It is about permanently removing the translation roadblock and trusting your brain to connect instantly with the English language.
The knowledge is already stored inside your head. You just need to clear the pathway to let it out.
As we wrap up this deep dive, consider this final thought. We have spent this entire time discussing how bypassing the translation phase improves language learning. But think about how this framework of direct action applies to other complex skills you might want to learn.
Whether you were trying to learn computer coding, or learning how to play a musical instrument, or even practicing public speaking.
How often do we slow our own progress in those areas because we insist on translating new concepts back into old, comfortable frameworks? What if the biggest barrier to your fluency isn't a lack of knowledge, but rather your own perfectionism?
Imagine how much more of the world you could connect with if you simply gave yourself permission to be good enough right now, rather than perfectly silent.
What if the secret to mastering any new skill is simply forcing yourself to operate directly within the new system, clumsy at first, without ever relying on a middleman? It is a powerful concept to explore. Thank you for joining us today. We will see you on the next deep dive.